Hi. So I have just over 100 pages left in the 10% Thief, and it feels a lot like the author had a lot of bones to pick with our modern society and kind of amplified a lot of them to create this fictional dystopian world. She's also taking an aim at the inbuilt handicap of people who are lower down in the lower social classes and how hard it is to achieve upward social mobility, whereas downward social mobility is relatively easy in this society, which it isn't always in our real society, because of how, for example, parents can send their kids to private schools and where the best teachers teach and where they can make connections and those with important people who can pull strings for their kids in their futures and so on, regardless of their actual skill set. And I just closed my windows so that not every passerby could hear what I was saying, talking to myself. So yeah, it's very, very hard for people to achieve upward social mobility, and there are a few different ways that an analog can move upward into the 70% or even the 20%, and one of these is through adoption. And it doesn't seem to be very common, but among the very powerful 20%, it seems that adoption of analogs is a thing, and for people who can't have their own kids, and they would only adopt the most accomplished analog children from orphanages. And there's one character who was adopted for her musical abilities and her, I guess, lack of distinctive individualism, which is very appealing among people of this apex city society. And she's being educated alongside her 20% peers. But whilst they have access to all the best educational technology and practically have information implanted into their heads, she has to do it the old-fashioned way. So like reading through books, and she has to write essays, handwrite essays, which none of them have to do. And she has to work 200%, put 200% of the effort that they have to put in, or more, 1000%. And in order to achieve the same level of education, I guess. And she has to eventually take a citizenship exam to really become a virtual citizen and have access to all the same technology as her peers. But she has to achieve this whilst constantly in this uphill battle to achieve the same level of performance as her peers who have all of these advantages over her. So I thought it was a very stark metaphor for how class works in our societies. But I would say that the book so far is quite heavy-handed in terms of making the whole world an exaggerated metaphor for the world that we live in, or an idealized idea of meritocracy. Excuse me. So it does feel like a pantomime sometimes, like it does feel over the top. The extent of the frivolity can feel a bit incredible sometimes, but I understand the rationale for the society wanting this of its citizens, not wanting them to question too much, wanting them to be individualistic in the sense that they're not communitarian, they're not looking out for each other. There isn't much mutual aid. They want competition, but at the same time they don't want any distinctive individuality that would make people stand out in the wrong ways in their society. So very interesting, but in terms of the pleasure of reading the book, it's okay. It's a 3 stars so far, I think. Yeah, so not, in my opinion, a contender for the prize, the Arthur C. Clarke Award. But I could be completely wrong. I don't really know what they're looking for. I've been trying to find the criteria, and it seems that it's very loose. And even if you look at the past winners, there's quite an array of sci-fi there. So the judges are rotated around and have their own. I read an article by one past judge, actually, and it seems like it's the criteria change according to what the judge considers deserving of merit. And those judges are always changing. So anyway, I will continue on and fill you in again soon. So I finished The 10% Thief and I gave it 3 stars. I think that Lakshminarayan is extremely imaginative, and her strength lies in her world building. There's no doubt about that, and I commend her for that. And I think that what she's done is to take the worst of our society and really distill it into the realm of ridiculous. So I think she has a very penetrating view of the problems in our societal structure in terms of its meritocratic aspects, and also very much the frivolity of our mainstream culture as well. I would say that more than anything, she's critical of the insidious effect of technology and how technology impacts our lives more and more. And this is what the book is mainly about. And it has quite a good ending in this respect, but I won't say anything about it because I'll let you make your own judgment about the book. I don't want to spoil it. It is a book worth reading, and I think that a lot of people will get more out of it than I did. So, like, in terms of what she's trying to do, using the book as a device to critique our society, I think she does quite well. She's talented, she's smart, but I think that the book just wasn't very enjoyable for me because I found that it wasn't quite note perfect. There's something dissonant about it. The last winner of the Arthur C. Clarke Award was Venomous Lumpsucker, and it was also a satire, and I think it very much entered the realm of the ridiculous as well. Very absurd in many regards, but it was a better book, I think, more enjoyable book because it was funny. And there are places in The 10% Thief where it's very obvious she's trying to be funny, but it doesn't quite hit the mark. It's not really funny. And not only that, but none of the characters are likable, and there's nobody I really felt empathy for in any deep level. Otherwise, I think that it is an accomplished book, but in terms of enjoyment, nope, I didn't feel it. So I haven't gotten as much reading done today as I would have liked. Unfortunately, I'm reading 2 novels at the moment for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. They are Chingang All Stars by Nana Kwame Brenyah. Adjei-Brenyah, sorry. And the other one is Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. And I much prefer the former. And mainly that's because I believe that the former is written for adults, whereas the latter is written for a younger audience, not somebody like me approaching 40. And I find that the characters are also more compelling in Chingang All Stars. There's more nuance there. The story feels like they're both dealing with serious themes, but Chingang All Stars feels like it's delivered with craft and consideration. It's artistic. The writing can be artistic, whereas in the case of Some Desperate Glory, it feels like it's written for entertainment, easy, consumable, digestible entertainment that doesn't require too much like deep thought, even though it's dealing with themes like generally bigotry and racism and sexism and homophobia, among other things. Because the main character, and maybe this is part of the problem in Some Desperate Glory, is a bigoted fascist. She's brainwashed, mind you, she's just a human being and she has good intentions, but she has a lot of unsavory aspects to her character. She's naive and she thinks she's doing right, but she doesn't see the world with much nuance. And I think with the author, there are so many characters within the book that I thought would have been better candidates for the protagonist, more compelling, more relatable. But I think what the author wants to do is to follow this process of taking somebody who's been inculcated into something like fascism and deconditioning them, and following that process, peeling away of those prejudices and so on. And so this character who is basically a war breed of human, bred to take revenge on the Maja, I think they're called, who are a kind of confederation of other alien species that are responsible for destroying the Earth. She has to defect from this like Gaia military thing because her brother disappears, and of course she loves her brother very much, so she has to go after him, and she takes with her one of her brother's friends and also an alien species who was a prisoner in the space station where this human military revenge army kind of works out of. And when she enters the real world, and even before, her prejudices are challenged, and she undergoes the process of like opening up to the world and the true diversity of, I was going to say humanity, but more like humanoids. You can kind of tell from very early on in the story what's going to happen, that she's on a redemption arc, and here we go, and I can see everything coming down the road, but maybe I'm wrong, but so far it's been really predictable. And in the case of the other book, I'm only 50 pages in. It's hard to judge when you're only 50 pages in, but with these sci-fi books, they're like nearly 400 or more than 400 pages long. But the characters are, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of internal conflict. They're not bad people, but they're pushed to do bad things. And then we're also looking at it from the perspective of people on the outside, and the majority of people are happy to commodify human beings and to objectify them and just see them as a form of entertainment. And then there are those who are against it and who think it's wrong, and they're protesting this like money-making TV show which pits human against human and that makes them fight to the death. And there's a lot of introspection on the part of the main characters, so I like that. Generally, I like that kind of fleshed out inner world. That's it for now. I'm feeling like this might be part 2 of the vlog, but perhaps I'll just wrap it all together in one and just edit it down. There's quite a lot of material. I'm still not done. I have to make my prediction still, so I'll go back to reading and then I'll come back with my prediction. I don't know if I'll get it all done. I won't, as a matter of fact, because I can't get my hands on Corey Fad's Social Mobility, which I think would have been an interesting read, so it's kind of a shame that I can't get my hands on it. I'll read a few reviews, and who knows what might happen before this video goes up, before I make my prediction, but I have to at least read a part of it before I can really make a prediction. Look at that for scale. There probably aren't that many beans in there, but they're going to be big fat beans. The only thing is, though, the older they get, the bigger they get, the less, well, they get a slight bitterness to them, but still good enough to eat. Hi everyone, this is me filming out of my home, which is also my car. Just kidding, I don't really live in my car. Although I wouldn't blame anybody for thinking that I live out of my car, given how I've been filming for this vlog. So, I'll get the embarrassing stuff, or like the unfortunate stuff, out of the way first. I didn't complete every finalist for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. I completed 3 books entirely, and then I have read half of Some Desperate Glory, a little over half, and about half of Chain Gang All Stars. And then I couldn't get my hands, as I mentioned before, I couldn't get my hands on Corey Fad's Social Mobility by Isabel Waidner. I did, however, get a free sample of that book, just the first 3 chapters, I think, and I read those to get a kind of a feel for the book, and also I read a couple of reviews, and generally speaking the reviews were positive. So I feel ill-equipped to judge that book. However, I'm going to do so based on those 3 chapters, and with the full knowledge that this is an unfair judgment of the book. Essentially, what I believe the book is ultimately trying to say is that if you are somebody who's not of a privileged standing in society, you may gain, for the sake of, maybe on the face of it, equality, you may gain admission to attaining social capital, but that's not the same as accessibility. The idea that, if you're, say, working class, that there might be pathways into gaining access to social mobility, but in actual fact, your background or who you are essentially sort of holds you back. I found those 3 chapters quite chaotic, and they raced, and the chapters are very short, so I didn't actually read that much because they just raced by. That early stage of the book encompassed everything that I heard about the plot in advance. So this genderqueer writer wins the award for the fictionalization of social evils, goes to retrieve it, and rather than it being a trophy, it seems to be a beige neon UFO that disappears into a wormhole. And the same encounter, during that encounter with the UFO, the main character also meets this Bambi-esque spider character who seems emotionally distraught about something. There's this game show that the protagonist and their partner watch about wormholes, hosted by this guy who claims to have come from the 1960s through a wormhole. And he interviews other people, as I understand it, who think they have had experiences with wormholes. And after this, apparently the protagonist and their partner end up taking over this game show, and they go on, like, I don't know, some sort of wild goose chase or something. I think the writing is experimental, and it might be something that you get used to as you read on in the book. I didn't enjoy them. It's just not my type of book. Too different from what I enjoy. That's not to say that it is not a good book, right? But I have to make a judgment based on what I think about literature and also what I've read of the book. I do not think it is a contender for the Arthur C. Clarke Award, but we shall see. Next book was, I'll go backwards from from the order that I've read them in. So then Some Desperate Glory, which I might DNF, to be honest, because I don't have a great interest in the book and it's quite long. So it follows Kier, who is a war breed of human, bred to take revenge on this sort of confederation of alien species that were responsible for the destruction of the Earth and 14 billion human beings on that planet, as well as all the other species, which don't really matter to the human beings so much. She and her brother and her sister were all bred for this purpose, and so she's completely focused on revenge. She's a real good soldier, so to speak, and she's very rated very highly in the cadets that she's part of. And her brother disappears, and it turns out that he has been sent on a mission called Strike, which is basically a suicidal mission. He's kind of the person she loves most of all in her life, so she goes after him to save him, I guess. And at the same time, she's also running away from her assignment for her adulthood, because she's a teenager. She's been assigned now her role in this Gaia Station society, this separatist kind of revenge culture. She was assigned to be a breeder, essentially, to be a broodmare, and she rejects this because she sees herself as a warrior. And she and Avi, another soldier on this station, and Isu, an alien who has been captive on the station, all escape the station with the help of Kier and her expertise, and go to this planet where humans are living with aliens in peace, a peaceful kind of society. And then she starts to, her whole view of the world starts to drop away as she encounters reality, really, because she's been brainwashed into the culture of this separatist human society. So that gives you an overview of the book. If I haven't mentioned it already, I might have to cut that if I've already given you the plot, but it is not marketed at YA as far as I know, but it does read a lot like YA, and I feel that if they had taken out some of the bad language and some of the allusions that wouldn't be appropriate for teenagers, it would be a good book for teenagers, and I probably would have enjoyed it if I had been around the age of 13, 14. I know that YA has a much broader following than that, and a lot of people, maybe for, I don't know if it is a nostalgic thing, but so many adults like to read YA. I understand reading books from your childhood, wanting to reread them and re-experience them. I stopped reading YA really early on in my life, like probably as a teenager, because I found that it was quite hard to find good quality YA when you have like classics that are perfectly acceptable reading material for teenagers. We all have different tastes. There's no judgment there, really. It's just that it isn't really something that I have enjoyed for a very long time. I don't understand how it is an entrant for this prize. It seems completely different from past winners, and it seems very different from the other entrants, the other finalists. So I really don't see it winning the prize. The next one is Chingang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. And so I've read halfway through. I would say that I have a lot of respect for this writer, who is very evidently skilled at writing, and characterization is interesting. Some of the lines are quite slick, there's a good turn of phrase, very appropriate for the story and the setting. I like this challenging of the industrial prison complex in America. I like what he has done to create this sci-fi world. Sometimes I'm not really sure that this story needs to be taking place in a high-tech future. I'm not sure that that's always necessary. It feels like a skin placed on the story after the fact. But it's not a problem. It's not an issue at all. I guess it gives you that little bit of imaginative freedom, because people can, rather than having to think of this as an alternative present, people can think of it as a possible future. I don't know, maybe there's some kind of strategic reasoning behind it there. I will finish this book, unlike Some Desperate Glory. It's an audiobook. Some Desperate Glory is an audiobook, so I might just listen to it in the car when I'm not doing anything else. But I want to finish Chingang All-Stars, because I think that it is, although it's not something I would pick up myself, it is something that I think I should expose myself to fully as a new kind of book that I might read in the future. I'm not really feeling that at the moment. I'm enjoying it enough to keep reading it. It's compelling enough, but I'm not like, oh yeah, I'd love to read that kind of book more in the future. In actual fact, now I'm thinking, I'd really like to read old books, because these are all contemporary. I'd like to read a couple of older books. But so although I think this book deserves acclaim, and I think it should be widely read, and I think that Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah is a talented writer, I don't think it is a contender for the prize. So I feel like I hadn't really talked about those books that I hadn't completed much, and now that I've done that, I'm not going to go into any real depth in regards to the other three, which I have talked about earlier in my vlog and in part 1. And those are The 10% Thief by Lavanya Lakshminarayan, The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Nayler, and In Ascension by Martin McInnes. So I've already spoken about what I think about those, except In Ascension by Martin McInnes. I haven't said much about it because I've already done a review on that. That's a book that I picked up before I even had the Arthur C. Clarke Award in mind, and I picked it up based on that instinct for the book that you think you'll like. And I think now, after reading these finalists, that I'm pretty accurate about what I like. I think I'm able to judge by a little bit of information and reading like a half a page or whatever, or less. I'm able to get a sense of the books that I like. I can see that now a bit better. I suppose you have to read books that you don't really want to read in order to get a sense for like your sense of the books that you like. In Ascension, just very briefly, it's very philosophical, very beautiful. The prose was absolutely the best amongst all these books, hands down. It was the best writing is in Martin McInnes's book. It's very almost spiritual. It's very deep. It's the deepest of all the books. Something about the character was a little bit frustrating, but I think that works for who she is and the main character of In Ascension, and it all came together very beautifully. Nothing was especially obvious about it, which was nice. It didn't speak down to the reader at all. It allows you space to make your own inferences, and I really appreciate that in a book. And it had a kind of cyclical quality to it in many different respects, which I really enjoyed. I thought really showcased that Martin McInnes really showcased his writing prowess in that book. And honestly, the themes, although it didn't offer the same quantity of intellectual fodder as in The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Nayler, it offered something much deeper and in some sense spiritually more gratifying for me as a kind of Gaia worshipper. Just joking, but to me, I'm not religious, and to me life is what is the most important thing, right? Is sentient beings' life on Earth, which is such a rarity in the universe. Anyway, so not so surprisingly, my prediction for the Arthur C. Clarke Award 2024 is that In Ascension by Martin McInnes will be the winner. I haven't done this before, so I don't know what my odds are of getting this right, but that's my prediction based on my own personal feelings. It's been an interesting experience to vlog for the first time and share a little bit, tiny bit of my behind the scenes life. I look forward to whatever the next video is going to be. I'm not really sure at the moment. If you have any suggestions, feel free to offer them to me, because I'm very open to doing all sorts of things really at this stage. And until the next time, stay well, stay curious, and stay reading.